I'm a female in my mid-20s and I work in my local hospital. This happened last week when I finished my shift in the evening, around 8 p.m. It was still light outside and I decided to walk the 20 minutes home. Whenever I'm walking, I tend to listen to my music on my iPod and just zone out. Not the safest idea, but most of us do it. A few minutes into my walk, I have to cross a bridge over the motorway. As you walk up to the slope to the bridge, there is a small wooded area on either side of you. I could feel something or someone around me, so I casually stopped my music and had a look around. Nothing was out of place, and I thought maybe it was just me being overly sensitive. I kept the music off though, just in case, and carried on walking. A few moments later, I heard rustling behind me, and turned around and got startled. Again, but there was nothing there. At this point, my heart is racing and I'm trying to convince myself I'm being paranoid. I get to the top of the bridge and I am now out in the open and can see all around me, so I am feeling a lot better. 10 minutes later, I am nearing home and laughing to myself about how silly and paranoid I was. At this point, I'm just as relaxed as I can be. My music is back on and I'm just enjoying winding down from work. I've now just reached the top of the park, which sits opposite of the road, and I am all perked up as I'm nearly home. I looked behind me. I hadn't heard anything or really sensed anything, but to my knowledge, I'm very thankful I did look, and saw a guy about 3 feet behind me. He was that close. This guy was tall, skinny, and he had greasy black hair that hung around his face. He was dressed all black. The creepiest part is when he looked dead behind the eyes. He was staring directly at me. There was nothing there, just blank. I turned back around and started walking at speed down the park, hoping that I was just being silly. I contemplated rummaging in my bag for my phone to call the police, but didn't want to slow myself down and still at this point wonder if I was misreading the situation. The creeper carried on following me, and although it wasn't as close as 3 feet anymore, he had still significantly kept his speed. Every time I looked behind me, he was staring directly at me, still no emotion, still completely dead behind the eye. I contemplated heading somewhere else and trying to lose him, but at this point I was terrified and just wanted to get to safety of my house. As my house came into view, I decided to just run for it, which I should have done sooner. As I looked behind me, I noticed the creeper wasn't running after me, it was still walking fast and staring at me. I got to my door and rummaged through my bag for my keys, completely aware that any moment now the creeper could have got up. I grabbed them and hurried inside into the house. When he was 15 feet away, I slammed and locked the door behind me and then ran upstairs. The front door has glass panels and our living room has a big glass door front facing the back garden. I didn't want him to be able to see me. I was shaking like mad and I was edged up the stairs and looked out our stairs window. He was nowhere to be seen. I went upstairs and looked out the bedroom window to get a better view of the front garden and I couldn't see him. I thought he'd gone. With my heart still racing, I got out my phone and headed downstairs to call the non-emergency number. As I walked into my living room, his face was pressed up against the glass peering into my house, and we made eye contact, dead eyes again. I let out quite the scream and ran back upstairs. I called the emergency number. As I waited for the police, the creeper had taken a seat in my garden, cross-legged, just staring at the house. The police came within 10 minutes and picked him up. He went without any struggle. The policewoman that came told me he told them I was just waiting for her. Turns out Creeper is a patient in the psychiatric ward of from my hospital. From what I found out, since he had been a little bit fascinated with me from seeing me around the hospital doing my job, some people I know is in the psychiatric unit tell me he'd been monitoring his girlfriend recently, and they thought it was about another patient. They now think he was talking about me. He had been moved to another hospital now, somewhere where he can recover and I won't be afraid to go to work. I'm hoping he doesn't have the freedom just to leave and come see me whenever he wants. I do hope he gets better, but I'm finding it hard to have warm wishes for him when he terrified me as much as he did. But for now on, I will definitely be catching the bus home. I spent my New Year's Eve and Christmas in a hospital, so yay, go me. I'm 14 years old and I was in a pretty bad accident. My dad was T-boned by a drunk driver and a piece of metal almost completely impaled my leg. I really did escape death. This happened not even 3 hours ago. Thank God I'm going today. There has been this nurse. She looks like a really normal and nice person. The things she has said to me over the past couple of days have just given me the creeps. My leg will sometimes start to leak blood and she just needs to redress it. She would rub my leg randomly. She was not putting cream or any type of medical rub. She would just rub it, nowhere near the wound, like always on the other side. I would ask her what she was doing and the answer changed from testing to pain to massage to feeling for lumps, all while doing the exact same thing every time. She did it uncomfortably long time. She would even make these comments about how I had little chest hair and how it would come in once I am a man. She would make these comments like ladies love men with scars. I woke up 3 hours ago and this nurse was standing at the foot of my bed staring at me. I did not move. I do not think she knew I was awake, but I had my eyes half open peeping out looking at her. She was literally just standing there looking at me. I turned over to suggest I was awake and no joke I saw her leave the room and walk into the hallway. This one is nothing in comparison to what I've read on here, but it still freaked me out, so here it goes. Around this time last year, I was at the hospital. I had a cartilage from my knee grafted to my ankle, so I had the knee size of a football, and my ankle was broken and bolted back together. The hospital was occupied to the last bed, so I shared a room with two elder men on the urology instead of my surgery. There was only one night nurse for up to 20 rooms, so she barely checked on us more than once a night. It was my second of 7 nights. Usually I have a very light sleep, but I was drugged up with painkillers, so I slept like a rock. At around 3 a.m. I woke up to a light hitting my face. I thought it was the night nurse coming to empty the cartridge bag of one of the other men, urology after all. I turned my head to look over, but there's no one in our room. I'm still half asleep, dizzy, and can't quite focus, but I see a shadow on the wall coming from one of the rooms. I turn my head again and there is someone standing in the door, slightly rocking back and forth. It takes me a minute to focus, but then there's an old man, skinny, in a Johnny shirt. He noticed me, stares at me, does the old finger on the lip, shh. As he takes out a step back, slowly closes the door. Part of me thought my mind was playing tricks, and thanks to my medication, I'm soon back to sleep. Fast forward the next morning, the nurse comes in and I ask her if there was someone lost last night. She tells me there was this old guy straight out of surgery that had paradox reaction to a drug. He woke up thinking he was in jail. He walked across the entire hospital with a bleeding wound from his kidney surgery trying to escape prison. I'm a huge guy, don't get scared easily, but I was so vulnerable at the time that this one really got me. This happened to my mom in the early 80s in my native country. My mom gave birth to my sister and she was completely alone, single mother with no one by her side. Not even a friend or a coworker. Her family lived in a different state and she had kept her quiet about her pregnancy. My mom gave birth to a healthy baby girl in a public hospital almost immediately. A nun started shadowing my mom and eventually told my mom a couple was interested in raising my sister. If she was willing to give her up, my mom of course declined and told the nun to go away. That was in the morning. The same night at around 1 a.m., my mom's nurse, an older lady, wakes her up in a hurry and has my mom and Sweater's bags packed. She told her, "Sweetheart, they're gonna take your baby. If you want to keep her, then you have to leave now. I'll bring her to you, but you have to go now. If you stay, she'll be gone by the morning." My mom got her shit and left with my sister in the middle of the night, still in pain. Nurse Amelia was sweet enough to give my mom money for a cab. She called for herself. My mom named my sister after Nurse Amelia. Sadly, these stories are not unheard of them that time. That country was in dictatorship or getting out of one. I don't remember well. So people in the government did whatever they wanted. Children from poor, unwed mothers were usually taken away and given them up for adoption to rich couples who could pay the doctors and the hospital money for healthy babies. It's messed up and my mom got very, very lucky. Thank God for Nurse Amelia.